why I carry hope in my heart as we begin 2026. They ask why I believe I can persuade our fellow Scots that Scottish Labour offers a better future for our nation. Well, my answer is simple. As leader of Scottish Labour and as candidate for Scotland's First Minister, I do not stand alone. I stand alongside the hundreds of thousands of Scots waiting in avoidable pain on an NHS waiting list. I stand alongside the thousands of brilliant NHS staff who feel burnt out and under-supported. I do not stand alone. I stand alongside the thousands of parents who feel their children have been let down and locked out of opportunity. I stand alongside the thousands of families stuck in temporary accommodation without a home to call their own. I do not stand alone. I stand alongside communities who feel unsafe, where crime is rampant and no police officer is in sight. I stand alongside the thousands of victims of crime who feel the system is designed to hurt them, not support them. I do not stand alone. I stand alongside the many people frustrated after 2 decades of the SNP in government and who are desperate for change. I do not stand alone. I stand alongside the millions of our fellow Scots who yearn for a better tomorrow. I do not stand alone. I stand alongside each and every one of you who believe in something bigger than ourselves, who are willing to do the hard work and who are determined to win and to change our country for the better. That's why we stand together, and that's why I have hope. My friends, millions of our fellow Scots feel frustrated and politically hopeless. So let's be honest. If the election were held today, the undecideds would win in a landslide. That is where we begin this year. That is both a heavy responsibility and a huge opportunity for Scottish Labour. Because this campaign must be, and this campaign will be, the vehicle for the people of this country to realise their hopes and dreams for a better Scotland. Because, friends, there are now 2 types of politician in our country. One that sees a problem and thinks not about how to fix it, but how to use it to divide our communities and our country. And the other that sees a problem, sets out to fix it, and brings our country together in the process. The SNP and Reform, they both play the politics of fear and blame. I and we believe in the politics of unity and hope. And I believe unity and hope is what ultimately will win. Now, what of reform? I do not underestimate the challenge of reform, because the leading political narrative winning elections around the world today is to tell people that those people are the reason for the pain in their lives. So I don't underestimate that challenge, but confronting and defeating reform is a responsibility I relish. Because reform are not interested in fixing Scotland. They want to profit from frustration. They want to divide communities and walk away from responsibility. The truth is, Nigel Farage does not care about Scotland, he doesn't understand Scotland, and he doesn't want to fix Scotland. All reform can do is help the SNP win. And that is why John Swinney is so determined to talk them up. So yes, we must defeat reform, but my ambition is bigger than that. I want to build something better here in Scotland. But we must confront the reasons pushing people towards reform. Because people feel ignored. When services fail and when trust drains away, it creates space for those who want to divide us. I know people are angry, and I know they're frustrated. And I will never dismiss people's fears or sneer at their concerns. But I will never exploit them either. Instead, my promise to each and every one of you is this: I will do the hard work and I will earn your trust. Now, before the new year, I promised this would be the biggest, boldest and most ambitious campaign to change Scotland in our political history, and I meant it. So let me tell you what that means. 1 million. In the last week, over 1 million homes have received our magazine setting out Scotland's Choice. We are unleashing the most sophisticated and largest digital operation of any political party in Scotland's history, reaching 1 million Scots every week. And as it showed in Hamilton, we have the largest and most effective ground campaign of any party, and between now and polling day, we will have 1 million conversations about Scotland's choice. And over the holiday period, we raised almost £500,000, meaning we now have an election fund sitting at £1 million and rising. Every penny will be used to make clear Scotland's choice. 1 million, but ultimately just two choices. A third decade of the SNP failure with John Swinney as First Minister, or new energy, new ideas and new leadership for Scotland with me as First Minister. Everything else and everyone else is just noise. I am the only candidate standing to beat the SNP and replace John Swinney as First Minister. So the choice Scotland makes in 4 months matters. John Swinney wants to make this election about anything but his record. He wants to make it about a government somewhere else, not about the government here in Scotland. If he believes in his record, he should defend it. I believe in my vision for Scotland, and I am happy for it to be tested. That's why I am challenging John Swinney to not just leaders' debates, but head-to-head First Minister debates, one in every region of Scotland. Each debate focused on a key responsibility of the Scottish Government. So we can debate the SNP's record of failure on the NHS and my plan to fix it. So we can debate falling standards in schools and my plan to raise them. So we can debate the housing emergency, justice, local government, transport and the economy. I have the hunger, I have the energy, I have the ideas, and I am up for the challenge. The question is John Swinney? Because that ultimately is the choice Scots face. On May the 7th, this election is not a verdict on 2 years of a UK Labour government that you can't replace at this election, but it is a verdict on 2 decades of an SNP government that you can replace at this election. So let's be clear. In 4 months, Scotland has a choice. The past or the future. Excuses or solutions. Division or leadership. John Swinney and the SNP who broke Scotland, or a Scottish Labour First Minister who will work as hard as you do to fix it. Scotland's choice. So join this campaign and choose hope, choose ambition and choose change. Now let's get to work and let's win this for Scotland. Thank you. From our friends in the press. Everyone be kind, as we always should be. Glenn Campbell from the BBC.
Well, Happy New Year. I suppose the question I'd like to ask is, given that Labour defeated the SNP at the UK general election and that you now acknowledge you're underdogs going into this contest, why or how have you squandered that lead over the last couple of years?
Well, Glenn, first of all, let me say that I am really open-eyed about the challenge that we face. I made that comment in my speech, that the entire attention of the political class and our journalists has been on what's happened at Westminster over the last 2 years. and they've not been looking at what's happening in Scotland over the last 20 years. And I'm confident the closer we get to that election, and when people actually decide the choice that they have is who the First Minister is and who the Government of Scotland is, that they will realise that the only path to a better Scotland comes from Scottish Labour and a Scottish Labour First Minister. I relish that opportunity and I relish that chance. Anyone that's ever said that the job of being leader of the Scottish Labour Party was ever an easy one in the last 5 years, I think they're probably watching the wrong movie and the wrong script. We have climbed mountains before to make this party survive, to thrive, to beat the Tories when people said it was impossible, to beat the SNP when people said it was impossible, and now some people again are saying it's impossible, but we are going to prove them wrong, and we're going to win the election in 4 months' time, and we're going to transform Scotland in the process.
So that sounds like you're saying it's the media's fault that you've fallen behind in the polls. Isn't that a cop-out?
No, I said the opposite in my speech actually, Glenn. I was really open about the fact that there have been challenges in other parts of the UK. But again, ultimately, the choice that people have to face is, do they view the election in 4 months' time as a protest vote without consequence, or do they accept that the choice we make in 4 months will have consequence for our NHS, for our schools, for our justice system, for housing, for local government, and for so much more? And I want us to choose a better alternative in Scotland rather than just simply believing our country is one of protest. I think actually that disrespects the people of Scotland and it disrespects the electorate. John Swinney might want to take that approach. I refuse to take that approach, and that's why I believe we'll win this election. Thank you. There's two from the BBC. Look at that. James.
Hello. Yes, there is.
Two questions from the BBC.
Well, Glenn works for BBC Scotland, I work for BBC Network News, as you know. But thank you for taking our questions. Happy New Year. My question's about your credibility. You stood side by side with Sir Keir Starmer. Over and again, we saw you saying only Sir Keir could deliver the change Scotland needed. And now you seem to be standing here, apparently telling those same voters who you gave that message to, that somehow the UK Labour government's irrelevant to them, nothing to do with you, makes no difference to this country. It seems to be the implication of what you're saying. So my question is, how is that remotely credible?
Well, that's not what I'm saying, James. What I'm saying is that UK Labour government has seen the average mortgage fall by over £1,500, the average wage increase by over £1,800, tens of billions of pounds of additional spending available right across the country because of decisions made by a UK government. The point I'm making, though, is that if you want to see a tangible, meaningful difference in your life for what's happening on waiting lists, what's happening in our schools, what's happening with police numbers, what's happening in local government and local services, what's happening in terms of house building across our country, those are not issues that are going to be resolved by a UK government. Those are all issues that are solely the responsibility of an SNP Scottish government. So we can choose. We can choose to say, actually, protest is more important to us as a nation rather than those things that touch our daily lives. I don't think that's where people in Scotland are, though. I think people in Scotland do care about their local school, their local hospital, their local services. And that's the challenge we have over the next 4 months. Is I believe if we make this election about Scotland, we will win. Someone needs to ask John Swinney, what kind of nationalist is he, where he wants an election not to be about Scotland, but about somewhere else? I will make this election about my country, Scotland. Paul Hudson from the Daily Record.
Anas, I think you've decided to make this a contest.
They both said Happy New Year to me, Paul. I feel disappointed that you didn't say Happy New Year.
I think I already did a couple of days ago.
All right. Oh yeah, I got the text. Thanks.
Just on your speech, I think you intend to make the Holyrood election a personal contest between yourself and John Swinney, but I had a look at the personal poll ratings of both yourself and the First Minister, and he's more popular. So my first question is, what's the logic of that choice, given that you're not as popular as the person that you're trying to make it a popularity contest against? And number two, if you speak to people, their top issue is the cost of living crisis. They're sick of being skint, they want more money in their pockets. They're not really bothered about head-to-head contests and TV debates. So, just to be clear, what are your policies in a devolved context to put more money into the pockets of the people of Scotland?
Well, the first thing I would say is, is that if you look at the choice that people have to make in the election in 4 months' time, there are only going to be one of two outcomes. Either John Swinney is going to get a third decade and be Scotland's First Minister, or we're going to choose a new direction and I'm going to be First Minister. And what people of Scotland have seen over the last 5 years is a politician that leads a Scottish Labour Party. What they haven't seen is someone who is standing to be a candidate for First Minister, who wants to lead our country and has new ideas and new energy and that new leadership our country needs. And I am absolutely confident that when people have those two put side by side and they see no energy John Swinney versus hyperactive, full of energy me, I genuinely believe they will choose a different direction. Because if you ask the question, who represents the future and a more diverse Scotland, me or John Swinney, I honestly believe I'm more representative of this country and the future of this country than John Swinney will ever be. And I relish that opportunity to go head to head with him. And the reason why the debates are so important is because it does have to become a battle of ideas and a battle based on the SNP's record. Because it's easy, the easy choice for John Swinney is to say, make about independence so we don't need to talk about our record. Try and dupe his own voters to pretend that this election is about whether the SNP win a majority or not about whether the SNP stay in power or not, and also to pretend that this election has no consequences. And so I am more than happy to debate our economic plans around how we use our levers to maximum effect in Scotland. I'm happy to debate how we change our NHS and make it fit for the future, how we renegotiate, for example, the GP contract to end the ATM rush for the GP, how we cut back the layer after layer of bureaucracy to make sure we focus on the money going to more doctors, more nurses and more treatments, not more chief executives and more managers. These are all issues that I'm more than happy to debate. In terms of cost of living issues, part of those is, well, look at our tax system. Our tax system in Scotland is fundamentally broken. Right now we are asking nurses and teachers to pay higher taxes in Scotland than they would in other parts of the country. These are not people with the broadest shoulders being asked to pay more. These are people that are driving our country forward, that are being asked to pay more and get less and less in return. That's just one example of the many I could give you. Thank you. Dan Sanderson from The Times.
Hi Anas, Happy New Year.
There we go.
You mentioned in your speech that the UK government haven't got everything right. I wondered if you'd just give us some specifics on that. You know, what would you say has been the biggest blunder that they've made since coming to power?
Look, I think, well, one example I've already given right from the outset is it was a mistake to remove the winter fuel payment. I'm pleased that we said that we would reverse that with the Scottish Labour government. I'm pleased that the UK government has now seen sense and reversed that. But actually the biggest criticism I make is there have been phenomenal achievements of this Labour government that they have not shouted about or cheered about and are waiting for other people to do the talking for them. For example, I've already mentioned about mortgages, wages or more money to spend here in Scotland. But that's for them to answer about shouting louder about their achievements. What I'm really clear about is we have to shout louder and clearer about what the choice people face here in Scotland is. Do we honestly believe that the best we can hope for is John Swinney fiddling about with the figures to try and pretend he's cutting NHS waiting lists, or the fact that we're actually going to clear the backlogs and make our NHS fit for the future? Are we really going to say that the best we can hope for in our schools is for them to hopefully creep up a little bit in the league tables, or at least stop falling in the league tables, or we're actually going to have an education system that meets the aspirations and the hopes of our kids? Are we really going to say that the best we can hope for is to hide behind the fact that we have free tuition in Scotland, something that I support and something we will maintain, but at the same time so many of our kids don't get access to college places or apprenticeships because of the SNP's failure to back every child in our country? These are the consequences of SNP decision-making. And I refuse to have any of Scotland's children held back and not supported, and that's why we need a change of government in 4 months' time. Thank you, Dan. Mark from The Sun.
Good morning, Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. That's the test now for every question.
So you said in your speech that you're running, you're not going to be in denial of the truth. And the truth is, despite what you say about this not being a referendum on Keir Starmer, the mood music going into this election is that if he gets dropped in the local elections, then he's going to face a really serious leadership challenge. So if you're a Scot who fancies seeing Andy Burnham going head-to-head with Wes Streeting, going ahead with Angela Rayner, this can be a referendum. If you want rid of Starmer, the Scottish election is a chance to give him a bloody nose. How do you counter that?
Well, again, simply I put this to you, Mark. What about Scotland's schools? What about Scotland's housing? What about Scotland's children? Are we simply going to have the approach of John Swinney to say all those things don't matter, but actually the person sitting in Downing Street matters more than what happens in our day-to-day lives here in Scotland? I tell you the one person that I'm desperate to get out of a top job and replace in a big house, and that is John Swinney. That's the person that's losing their job. Alison Grant from the Scotsman.
Hi there, Happy New Year. Given what you said about running in this election in defiance of the UK Labour government's unpopularity, do you want to see Keir Starmer coming up to Scotland to campaign alongside you? And just secondly, given what the polls show about reform potentially being in second place according to multiple polls in recent months, parties, as you know, don't usually secure a majority in Holyrood. Would you use reform votes to get into power and to become First Minister?
So the first thing I'd say is the best thing that Keir Starmer and the UK Labour government can do is be behind their doors in their departments, getting things right and changing our country. That's the single best thing they can do for people in Scotland and right across the country. I am leading this campaign. I am the candidate for First Minister. I am the one that's going to go out and make the case to Scotland about why we need to take a different direction in 4 months' time. And let me just say about the polls. Now, I've been confronted with the polls for the last 5 years. The polls were telling me we weren't going to beat the Tories. The polls were telling us we weren't going to beat the SNP. The polls were telling us we were never going to get 37 Scottish Labour MPs. The polls were telling us that David Russell was going to finish third. And we proved them all wrong. Because what the polls are is a snapshot of a question on any given day, not a prediction about what's actually going to happen on the day of the election. And I think this election we're going to have in 4 months' time is going to be more reflective of the 2011 election in reverse rather than what the polls are looking at right now. If you remember back in 2011, the SNP, we went into that election 13 to 15 points ahead of the SNP. But what happened 5 weeks later? We got beat by the SNP resoundingly because people's focus was not yet on the choice that they faced in that election. And I think that's what's going to happen in reverse in this election, where all the focus for the last 18 months has been on Westminster, has been on a UK Labour government, and not on the choice that Scotland faces. And I have every confidence that when Scots look at the choice that they have, and they see the option of 20 years of chaos under John Swinney, and a choice for a new direction with me, I am confident they will choose that new direction with Scottish Labour. And on the point you make around majorities and minorities, look, my aspiration has not changed. I recognise that it will be a parliament of minorities. Sorry, Nigel, it will be a parliament of minorities. And in those minorities, we will seek to form a minority Scottish Labour administration, and we will seek to persuade people. That's what the purpose of the parliament was. That's what devolution was supposed to be all about, was we will seek to persuade people on individual issues about how we take our country in the right direction. That's the ambition, that's the plan, and that's what we have to achieve in 4 months' time. Thank you. Simon from the Telegraph.
Happy New Year, Anas.
Happy New Year.
In order to take attention away from Westminster, do you basically need to put some political space between yourself and the Prime Minister for the next few months? And also, if you could just talk us through the thinking behind the change and rebranding behind you, because I don't even see a Labour logo anywhere on it.
Well, there is no shortage of Labour logos that are going to be going through people's doorsteps or social media feeds or anything else. But what I have behind me is my flag from my country, Scotland, the country that I love. The country that I hope to lead. And the reason why it's important that this flag is behind me is because this flag belongs to everyone in Scotland, not to one political party, not to one political movement. so enough of our political opponents trying to claim that they own Scotland or that they speak for Scotland. Enough of that. This country is as much mine as it is John Swinney's, and I look forward to those battles with him over the course of the next 4 months about who leads this country into the future. Thank you.
Can I ask, sorry, the first question, are you trying to put political space between yourself and Keir Starmer over the next few months?
Let me just say this. Look, I've already said about the challenges the UK Labour government has and what they've got to do to confront those challenges. But let me be really clear. John Swinney might want to run his election campaign against a UK Labour government. I'm running this election campaign against John Swinney and the SNP because this election is about Scotland. It's not about a government somewhere else, for somebody else. It's not about somebody else's schools or somebody else's hospitals. It's about Scotland's schools and Scotland's hospitals. That's who I'm running against. And that's why I'm challenging him to those debates. He would love to talk about Keir Starmer, Nigel Farage, reform till he's blue in the face. I want to talk about our hospitals, our schools, and about Scotland, because that's the choice we face in 4 months' time. Andrew from the Herald.
Thanks, Anas. Happy New Year. Polling shows that support for the SNP has fallen. The Scottish Government isn't popular, but when people look to where Labour are in power, they are seeing chaos and division. Do you have any messages for our colleagues in Westminster, particularly perhaps Wes Streeting, who, according to reports this weekend, is looking to have a leadership contest ahead of May's elections? And secondly, can I ask you about Matthew Doyle? Given that he campaigned in 2017 for a council candidate in Murray who'd been charged with child sex offences, Scottish Labour's General Secretary Kate Watson raised the issue with Morgan McSweeney and Jill Cuthbertson, but those concerns seem to have been ignored. Do you think Matthew Doyle should go into the House of Lords?
What was the first question, Andrew? Sorry.
It was, do you have a message for Wes Streeting?
Very simple message. Keep cutting those NHS waiting lists. I wish we were doing the same here in Scotland. Again, it shows you the consequences of an election. NHS waiting lists are falling in England. They are still rising in Scotland. There are more people in my home city of Glasgow alone waiting more than 2 years for a hospital appointment than the whole of England combined. If that doesn't tell you that electoral choices and who the government in Scotland is has consequences, nothing else will. So that's my message, is keep doing the work to change the country, and we want to do the same here in Scotland. On the second question, Matthew Doyle is not a member of the Scottish Labour Party. He is not a candidate in this election. That's a question for somewhere else, not a question for here. I'm focused on the choice facing people here in Scotland and changing Scotland for the better. Thank you. Last but not least, Sev from The Guardian. We're in your home city, Sev. Sorry, what are you last?
Happy New Year, and also Salam Alaikum. Anas.
That's going to get all the reform guys upset in the wrong way. See that?
So Anas, the SNP have actually got a pretty simple message for this election campaign to a lot of voters that trusted Labour in 2014. They trusted 2024. They trusted Keir Starmer would be the guy that we delivered. In fact, they will feel betrayed and very, very badly let down. They will say, you trusted Keir Starmer in 2024. Why on earth trust his sideman in 2026? You will also betray them and let them down.
The people that have betrayed the opportunity that Scotland gave them are the SNP. Let's think about the level of power and control that they have had in the last 20 years. Scotland gave them 20 years. It gave them a majority in the Parliament, and they could have used all that power and all that political capital to transform the country. But instead, they tried to use it to divide our country. Can you imagine if we had a scintilla of that much power and influence that they had given the SNP, and how different Scotland could look right now? So the people that have betrayed those 10,000 kids in temporary accommodation without a home to call their own, the people that betrayed the 850,000 Scots that are sitting on an NHS waiting list, the people that betrayed the more than 150,000 people on housing waiting lists across the country, the people that betrayed thousands of children who aren't getting the education they need, or the thousands of kids that applied for apprenticeships but can't get them because the places don't exist. The people that have betrayed the people of Scotland are the SNP, and that's why in 4 months' time we will boot them out and we will take a different direction here in Scotland. That's the choice that Scotland faces in 4 months' time, and a choice that I and every single person in this room absolutely relishes. Because let's look at what we are putting up in that election and what the SNP are putting up. They've got the same old tired faces, ran by John Swinney, trying to pretend they give them another 5 years and somehow they'll magically do what they haven't managed to do for the last 20 years. And what we have are candidates that are energised, enthusiastic, young candidates like Jackie Billy, ready to lead from the front and to win that election and transform our country. That's the plan, that's the choice. And let me just say this in closing, is there'll be lots of questions and comments from journalists and commentators about whether this is misplaced hope or misplaced energy. Let me be really, really clear. I am absolutely certain and confident that we can win this election. I am absolutely clear and confident that we will win the election, but we've got some hard work to do. And people can accuse me of many things, but they can't accuse me of being lazy or not working hard or not having the energy. I'm going to unleash all that and more to make sure we change our country for the better, because Scotland deserves better than this SNP government, and we're going to deliver. Thank you.